Hello and welcome to Round the Table, your slow TV radio podcast from the meeting point, broadcasting not only to Bilbao but throughout the world. So, welcome back to Round the Table, episode 32.
32 already?
Yes, it is episode 32. And this week we have coming up some typical mistakes. Then we'll be looking at what's the difference between some expressions. Then we have an amazing fact which is related to the topic of the week.
Which is?
The topic of the week is reform.
Reform, like the pub in Bilton.
Just like the pub, yes. The pub we often go to is called the Reform Inn, and it is connected. There is a reason why it's called the Reform Inn, and I'll tell you all about it when we do the amazing fact. But first, we have an important announcement.
Yeah.
As I said, this is episode 32. Our plan was to do 52 episodes. We were going to do this project for 1 year and then reassess the situation and see if it is worth continuing. So what we need is for a bit of feedback, if everyone knows what feedback is, response from the public. We need to know what you think, basically. So is there anything else we should be doing with the podcast? Tell us what you like about it, or if there's anything we need to add or take out or anything like that. Okay, so leave a comment down below. And don't forget to share it with your friends. We always forget to do this bit of the announcement. Please share it with as many contacts as you have, because the more people listen, the more famous we become. I'm thinking of the meeting point, not us personally. We want to make the meeting point famous. It's not personal gratification at all. Ah, dear. Anyway, shall we do typical mistakes?
Yeah.
So, typical mistake for this week, this one came up a couple of times, was the word work. We were talking about working and having a job and having two jobs. Okay, you can have two jobs. Jobs are countable. But work is not countable. I have work, I do some work, I do a lot of work, but you can't say works. Well, I lie. You can say works, but it's a very unusual situation in which you would say it. So it's not very common. So usually the rule to remember is if you want it to be countable, say jobs. I have a job, I need another job, or I'm looking for work, I have a lot of work. You wouldn't normally see works with an S on the end. The very few times are if you have a book like The Complete Works of Shakespeare, then you might see it with an S. Sometimes you see the word works meaning factory. In some places they use works instead of factory. Like a tool works, for example, is a place where they make tools.
Oh, I see. What about when they're doing some works on the road, for example?
Yes, you do have roadworks. I don't know if we talk about it as works. I think they say roadworks as a compound in the plural there. Yeah, but I don't think people say works just talking about the one thing.
Oh, so you'll say they're doing some road works.
Yeah, I'd say they're doing some work on the road or they're doing roadworks.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'd only use it in the plural in that compound form.
Okay.
And I was thinking a work in the singular. The only time I can think of using that is a work of art.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? But I wouldn't say I saw a work.
Yeah.
I saw a work by Michelangelo. It doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
But a work of art, but then it's like that whole compound sort of phrase, sort of a work of art.
Yeah.
Yeah? So it's kind of limited when you would use it. And then as I was explaining that, I thought this is the same problem with travel. Because people always say, during the travel I was sick. And I say you can't say during the travel. You can't have a singular travel. It's during the journey or during the trip or the voyage, the flight. There's lots of words to do with travelling.
Yeah.
Usually travel is a verb. And we can't have a singular travel. But occasionally you do see it as a plural. The travels of Marco Polo.
Ah, yeah.
So if you had a book, Gulliver's Travels, that story of Gulliver's Travels. If you have a book similar to the complete works of Shakespeare, but it's the complete travels, usually it's going to be an explorer, like Marco Polo. It could be Dr. Livingstone, one of those explorer type people.
Yeah.
You might get a book called The Travels of. So again, it's very unusual to see it with an S on the end. So generally speaking, work and travel, use it as a verb mainly.
I think it's easier just to do it as like that.
So that was the typical mistake. Oh, we'll do this other typical mistake as well while we're here. A lot of. This is a very simple mistake. A lot of. If you use the of, you have to say what you have a lot of. We need an object here.
Yeah.
I have a lot of money. That's not true. That's just an example sentence. I have a lot of friends.
That's not true either.
But if someone says, do you have a lot of friends? You say, yes, I have a lot. Or you say, I have a lot of friends. But if you have the of, you need to finish the sentence.
It's very common mistake that.
Yeah. Because it happened, like I say, it happened a lot this week. People say, yes, a lot of. And you can't say, yes, a lot of.
Yeah, but it's something missing there, like.
Yeah, that's what it is. It sort of leave you hanging at the end of the sentence, waiting for the sentence to finish.
Yeah.
So that's your typical mistakes for this week. Let's move on and look at what's the difference. Now we've got some phrases here. To give an example, to set an example, and to make an example of. 3 similar expressions. Right, to give an example, that's quite easy. That's when you say, for example, and then you give
An example.
I can't explain give an example without saying give an example.
Now you are giving an example. Or...
Yeah, yes. Well, like I said, I have a lot of friends in the last thing when we were talking about the mistakes. That's an example. I'm giving an example to demonstrate something.
Yeah.
What about set an example?
Well, it's when you want people to do something, you have to behave in that way. So people see that you are doing it.
That is exactly right, yes. And it's normally setting an example to children. It's the most common situation. Doesn't have to be, but quite often when we're going to cross the road, and we're waiting for the green man to come up, and it's on red, but there's no cars.
Yeah.
If there are any children nearby, you don't cross when the red man is showing. You have to wait for the green man.
Yeah.
Even though if there are no children, we just cross the road, But if there are children around, you should set an example and wait for the lights to change. So that's to set an example, is to behave in a certain way that you want other people to behave in.
Yeah, exactly.
So politicians should set an example if they want the people to behave. And make an example of. That's more like punishment.
Yeah.
If somebody behaves in a certain way and then you want to demonstrate that this is a bad thing to do, you need to punish that person so that everybody knows that that's the bad behavior.
Yeah.
So that's to make an example of somebody, to publicly demonstrate that that person behaved badly.
Very interesting.
So that's my few little phrases that came up this week, and I thought they were worth talking about. Now, do you want to know the amazing fact?
Yeah.
Well, the topic this week, as I said, was reform. And I started looking into things called the Reform Acts. And there were Reform Acts that went through the Parliament. The first Great Reform Act was in the 1830s, I think 1832. And it was about changing the electoral system and allowing more people to vote and updating the system, basically, because it was a very antiquated system. So they had to change it. And a lot more people got the vote. And that was called the Great Reform Act of the 1830s. And that is why the pub that we go to in Pilton was renamed. Then it was previously known as the Gardener's Arms.
Really?
And it changed its name to the Reform to celebrate the new rule, because so many new people were allowed to vote for the first time. Because before you had to be like, you had to own a lot of land or something like that. You had to have property. So anybody that didn't actually own the house they lived in couldn't vote. So it meant that there was a minority of the people able to vote. And it opened up the voting to so many new people that it was a major thing. And then later on, there was a second Reform Act. And they had these big public demonstrations. And they wanted to have a demonstration in Hyde Park. And there was a big riot. It turned into a riot. And a riot is normally when a demonstration turns violent and they start throwing things at policemen. And they ripped down the fences of Hyde Park, because Hyde Park used to have a fence around it. Because it was only for rich people. You had to pay to get into the park in those days.
Really?
Yeah. Public parks were another thing I was going to tell you about. I might have a secondary interesting fact here.
Well, they were not very public then, were they?
No, they weren't public parks in those days, no. The first public park was in Liverpool. That was the municipal park that was open to everybody. And there was somebody very important came from New York. And when he went back, they built Central Park in New York. The idea came from the park in Liverpool.
Really?
But anyway, at the time, the park, Hyde Park, was not open to the public. You had to pay a penny to get in, to keep the poor people out. So all the nice people went walking around showing off their new dresses and their hats and everything. Anyway, they ripped down the fence and they had this big demonstration in the park, and the government had to change the rules, and that's why they are still allowed to have public demonstrations and have political meetings on Hyde Park Corner. You know, no, not Hyde Park Corner, Speaker's Corner.
Yeah.
And that goes back to those demonstrations of the 1860s. And that's why, to this day, if you go to Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, there are people standing on a box shouting about politics and religion and things like that.
Do they have to be standing on the box? What's that about?
That's so other people can see them.
Okay.
You can just stand there and talk.
No.
And people have debates and things like that.
There was a rule about that as well.
No, they take a little ladder with them sometimes, a little step ladder, and all their signs and photographs of whatever they're complaining about. And anybody can go down and just start speaking in public. And it's an old rule going back to the 1860s that you have a right to say whatever you think.
Well, that's changing now.
So long as you don't incite violence, that's the main thing. If you start saying, kill all these people, then they take you away. But basically, whatever your political or religious opinion is, you can go to Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park. And that goes back to the Reform Act.
That's very interesting. Because I think with this new regulation now about fake news and that might change, don't you think?
Well, hopefully not, because it's a good old tradition and a very entertaining place to go, especially on Sundays. That's when the majority of people do it.
Yeah.
And you see some very funny arguments happening down there because people have some strange opinions. You'll have someone standing on their ladder, on their box, explaining why the earth is flat, and all these people will shout and argue about it. It's quite hilarious sometimes. Okay, so let's move on to the main topic of the week. Let's talk about reform.
Well, that's a very wide topic, isn't it?
It is a wide topic, yeah. We discussed various things. In fact, in the book that we use in the class, we didn't discuss half the topics really. One of the main things we were talking about was a thing called universal basic income, where everybody in a country receives a fixed payment.
Everybody, doesn't matter if they're rich or poor.
Yeah, everybody gets the same. And it doesn't matter whether you're working or not.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's not a lot, but it's enough to survive. So you can live off it, but you can't sort of go on holiday or
have any luxuries.
Yeah, you don't have a nice car or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought more people would be in favour, but we kind of got voted out on this one, and they didn't go for it.
It's very difficult because I guess it's a cultural thing. They tried this in other countries, haven't they? In Finland or somewhere like that.
I think in Canada they had an experiment as well.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very difficult because some people might think that those who already have lots of money, they don't deserve this, and maybe that could be given to the poor, so the poor could have less and distribute it in a different way.
Yeah.
On the other hand, some people might think if you give money to people, then they won't work.
Yeah, this was a major concern, that it would just make people lazy.
Mm.
But as I said to people, generally people are not lazy. A lot of people want something to do.
Yeah.
You know, I've met, I was telling them, I met that guy in my town that I worked with briefly, and he'd won the lottery and he was a millionaire and he was really bored. He said, I'm a working man. He said, I want a job, and he couldn't find a job.
Yeah.
And he had loads of money, but he wanted a reason to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, they need something to do. And I think the idea that if you give people money, they would automatically just become lazy is not really true. Because even working people, when you come to the weekend, you find activities, don't you?
Yeah. Or even after work. People who come to the meeting point, they don't have to learn English.
No.
But they do.
They do, yeah. People do all kinds of activities because they want to keep moving. They want to do things.
Yeah.
You know, nobody wants to lie on the sofa for the whole weekend.
Yeah.
It's a very dissatisfying weekend, isn't it?
Yeah. Or you can do it for one weekend, but then because you've been working for the whole week, you rest.
Yeah.
But if you don't do anything, then
yeah. Even if you do nothing in the weekend, you waste the weekend doing absolutely nothing, lying on the sofa. By Monday, you think, I did nothing at the weekend. What a waste.
Sometimes that's good as well.
Yeah, but you couldn't do it week after week after week.
That's what I mean.
And eventually you go, I need to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, the positive thing about this is like maybe people wouldn't have to do jobs that they hate, and they could start doing things they like. Yeah. So people will be more satisfied.
Well, that's what came out in the trial runs. They had trials of it, and they found that there were people that gave up work, but they gave up work for a reason, because they had a job they really didn't like. Mm-hmm. But previously they had no way of changing their career because you need some income, resources to survive on while you're trying to get another job. They found that there were people that gave up bad jobs to retrain. Yeah. So especially with people in their 20s, they went and studied and then went back into work with a better job. And there were a lot of single parents, well, mainly mothers, with children, and a lot of them were working two jobs. Mm-hmm. This is where the works thing came into the conversation. They had two jobs, not two works, okay? They were working hard, but they had two jobs, and they were able to give up one job. Yeah. And then that extra time was then spent with the children because they had the financial backup to enable them to do that.
That'll be good, because then it will make the mothers in this case spend more time with their children, which is a positive aspect, I think.
Yeah, well, I think that's an investment for the future, isn't it? Where you end up with better adults if you have time to look after children properly.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not supervising children and they're spending more time out in the street getting into trouble and not doing their homework and all the other things that children would do if they're not supervised, they're not going to be such good quality adults and quality members of society. There were also a lot of people that gave up work to follow artistic careers that probably not very well paid. So people became painters and musicians and poets, and realising that I'm never going to make a lot of money at this, but this is what I've always wanted to do. So
but
again,
you need that in society as well. You need those people making good things, like artistically. Because it's all not production, isn't it?
Well, that's the whole thing about cultural and artistic contributions to society. They're not necessarily rewarded. And this is why in a lot of schools they don't teach art and poetry. They don't, for a lot of governments, they don't see what the investment is. Because it's not financially rewarding afterwards. But then if it makes a better society,
it does.
It's an investment. And if the people are just happier, you know, it's always that constant chase for money, isn't it? And we think if we make more money, everyone will be happy. But maybe there's something more deep-rooted in society that we need to look at, really. The other thing, then, that was related to the universal basic income, like I say, not everybody was in favour of this, but we started playing with some similar ideas. What about if everybody had a fixed amount of free water, electricity and gas that was free, and there was a fixed amount for every person in the country, and then if you went over that limit, then you had to pay a lot more?
I think that might work better. I think that might be because then you know that the basics, like, because with money people can do anything. Maybe they can buy drugs. But if you have water, electricity, then people can have that for sure.
But if they worked out how much water you need to drink a day and how much water you need in a shower, so everyone can have a shower, wash their clothes, drink water, and for cooking, etc. That's all free. And then if you want to have a swimming pool, or you want a big garden or golf course to water, you know, waste thousands of litres, then you're going to have to pay a lot more money. But that subsidises all the poor people to guarantee, and with electricity as well. So old people aren't going to freeze in the winter. But those people that want their houses to be really hot and to be walking around in a t-shirt in the middle of winter, then they have to pay. Maybe that's... Okay, so you like that one then. We'll put that in the list of things to do when we come to power. Yes. When Meeting Point becomes famous enough that eventually we take over the government. Another one that's related was paying homemakers. Now, I use this word homemakers. In the old days, we used to say housewife.
Oh, you can say that anymore.
Well, then they added in another one, which was house husband, for the husband that stays at home and does the cleaning and cooking and looking after children. And then this new one, homemaker, has sort of appeared in recent years. Now, could we say that some people say that should be regarded as a job? And it should be paid. So the government should pay those people to stay at home and look after kids and, you know, like I say, supervise children, feed them properly, keep the house clean, etc.
Well, I think children's education is one of the most important things we need to look after, like in society, because they are the future. So...
That sounds like a song, one of those fundraising songs with Michael Jackson and Bono. The children are the future. Yes, very true. It's just very true,
So I was thinking in the past, if women stay at home, and you say your mother is a housewife, it's like, oh, I don't know.
It's a bit disappointing, isn't it? It always had a bit of a negative sound to it. Like that's not like a career person.
Yeah. However, like, it should be.
Well, it's they're making a valuable contribution to society. The other thing is, if they're paid, that it is then it's like it's recognised as a contribution and it's a job, because it's hard work. It's not easy, is it?
No.
So it gives it recognition. I think that's an important aspect of it. That it gives it recognition. Some people were against it. A few people, especially people that don't have children. They then say, well, why should I pay taxes so that somebody else can stay at home and look after their children? But then in society, that's what we do. A lot of my tax money goes on the roads, and I don't have a car, so I don't even travel on buses. So the roads are not important to me, but I expect some of my tax money is going to go there. And we pay for the schools as well.
Yeah.
And we don't have any children to make the most of that wonderful opportunity. But we are contributing to society for the well-being of society in general.
Yeah.
And hopefully, it comes around that those children are going to be more educated and they're going to contribute more into society and they're going to be paying our pensions when we retire.
Yeah, because I think the problem with women like starting in not working is that most of the times then they have to do the same at home. So it's not the same quality, I don't think.
Yeah.
They're maybe a bit too stressed.
Well, the other thing of that universal basic income was removing so much stress from people's lives.
I'm not saying that men don't do anything.
We do a lot.
Yeah, I know.
At least in some houses.
Yeah. So when I'm talking about mothers...
Generally speaking, actually, from what I've heard, even talking to young people, and they're talking about their circle of friends, like young couples, I was surprised that it's still like mainly the women that do the work, even in young couples. If the couples are like in their 60s, then they're doing it the old-fashioned way, and they're not going to change. But you would have thought the next generation coming through would have a new way of doing things. But apparently, it's not that way with many couples.
That's another debate.
Yeah, it is another debate. Yeah, that will be coming up. When are we going to do that? Probably next March when we have the Women's Day.
Yeah.
We'll probably discuss that in March. I think we'll still have the podcast going in March. Yeah,
Hope so.
It might be one of the final ones. Who knows? Unless lots of people leave messages and share it with all their friends. Yeah. The other thing we were talking about then was paying students. Instead of just paying people to not work, somebody said, yeah, but if they were studying, it would be okay. But then we're back into student grants. And I was telling people that when I studied, the government gave me money. I left home. I was on a fixed income every trimester. I had a couple of thousand or whatever it was.
Couple of thousand?
Or at least 1,000. It was in 4 figures anyway.
Wow.
And that was for my trimester, and I paid the rent on a little flat and bought my food, and the tuition fees were all paid for by the government. So it was all free. And then they did this thing where instead of the grant is the money that people give you to study or research or something like that. Instead of the grant system, they had the student loan system where they gave you the money but you paid it back. Basically, when you started working, the idea was you would have a better job with more money, and then you were on a higher tax bracket, as they call it, the amount of money you earn and the percentage that you pay. They put you on a higher tax bracket, so you were paying back all the money that they'd given you over the few years when you were studying.
Oh, that's not bad.
It's not a bad idea. And then they introduced tuition fees as well, so you had to pay for the course. Now that happened in, Cameron brought that in, so 2012 or something like that. And that caused riots in London as well. That one, yeah. We do like a riot occasionally. Yeah, so we were talking about paying students. But basically, there's lots of things that could be done to improve society.
Well, I think society is going to change so much in the next few years with the artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah,
That what's going to happen.
Well, it could be that we're looking at mass unemployment anyway, so we need to start thinking about what we're going to do with all the people.
Yeah, well, not us.
Well, no, it's not going to bother us too much. But for the future generations, it must be very difficult growing up now.
Yeah.
When I was a teenager and people asked me, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? And I said, I don't know. I'm 14. I don't know. I didn't even know till I was 40. But imagine being a teenager now and people asking you what you're going to do. You've got no idea what the world is going to be like. Even in 5 years' time, it could be a very different world. So it's hard to imagine. But anyway, briefly, we're going to finish soon, but we should discuss our artificial intelligence running a country.
Oh, yeah. Well, they are already testing that, aren't they? Those Elon Musk and his mates.
Yeah. Yeah, you said you were reading something about Elon Musk, yeah?
Yeah, because as he's planning to invade Mars, he's...
Invade? There's nobody there. You can't invade something that isn't occupied. Colonise. He's going to colonise Mars, isn't he?
I don't know what his plan is.
Well, he's a bit bonkers, isn't he, old Elon?
I don't know. But he's testing every aspect. So... one of them is running a country or a place with the artificial intelligence. So they are doing the first experiments there. I don't know what the...
People were not very impressed by that idea. People don't like it. And also people don't like the idea of these self-driving cars. But I keep saying that people say, they might have accidents, they might not be reliable, but humans are not reliable at all. And
they are more reliable than humans.
Yeah, you think how many
cars... By a country mile.
By a country mile? That's a big mile. But you think of car accidents, the majority are caused by humans, it's because...
they are reading the WhatsApp, on the phone,
and when the lights start to change, people go faster, whereas a computer-driven car would slow down at an orange light. Amber, it's called, not orange. The car slows down.
Yeah.
And if it's an automated car, it's not going to get angry because somebody overtook. Or jealous or something like that. They don't have emotions. And I was saying, if you've got the computer system running a country, if it's giving contracts out and company A offers this service at this price and company B offers this service at this price and company C is owned by my brother-in-law, the computer doesn't have a brother-in-law, does it? You've not got vested interest in, we're going to do this and we're going to do this and I'll make loads of profit, and after a while I'll give up running the country and go and live on a Caribbean island. The computer hasn't got any... He hasn't got a dog in the fight, as they say these days.
Yeah. I think artificial intelligence is gonna come in lots of conversations because it's gonna be in all the aspects in life. So
it does come into a lot of conversations when we're talking work, entertainment, creativity, whatever the topic is these days. It quite often gets back to
relationships.
AI. It's a big thing.
One of my teachers call it amigo ideal.
Well, it's a good. I think it's a good assistant.
It is a good assistant.
It needs a bit of supervision at the moment.
It's learning.
It has to be a tool, doesn't it? We have to use it for what it is. Everything has advantages and disadvantages. And it just needs to be. It needs to be supervised so it doesn't go too crazy, like Elon Musk. Anyway, I think that's all we have time for this week. So we better wrap up. there. Good phrasal verb to wrap up. That means finish. The topic next week is belonging, about group identity and things like that, and nationalism and supporting football teams and that kind of thing, the groups that you identify with. So,
don't forget to leave your comments.
Oh yes, don't forget to leave your comments and do the like thing, thumbs up, and share it with your friends, please. The more people listen, the more popular we become. I mean, the meeting becomes.
Okay.
Okay, have a good week. Till next week.
Bye.
Bye.